The observation deck of the Galactic Assembly Station hummed with its usual stereo efficiency. Commander of Records of the Salt Quarian Intelligence Corps pressed his scaled hand against the transparent aluminum viewport, watching yet another human transport vessel dock with a kind of precision that made his toothache. Humans, always punctual, always overstating the competent in ways that defied every reasonable expectation. They are requesting permission to address the council. His aide, Mela, chirped from behind him, her feathers ruffled with barely concealed anxiety. Big, of course they are, Verketh muttered, his secondary eyelids sliding shut in what passed for a sigh among a species. What is it this time? Another treaty violation they want us to ignore? More evidence of their absurd disregard for self-preservation protocols? Mela's datapad chimed. Actually, sir, this concerns Outpost 790 to the educational facility on Cavern Minor. That got his attention. Records turned from the viewport, his tail sweeping in a sharp arc that nearly knocked over a decorative plant. The nursery station. What could possibly warrant council attention? There, apparently, Mela said, her voice dropping to something between awe and horror. One of their teachers threw herself between a pack of crush raiders in a classroom full of young wings. Multiple species, sir. 37 children in total. Verketh felt his blood temperature drop 3 degrees. That is suicide. The crush do not take prisoners. They barely leave corpses. Yes, sir. That is what makes this interesting. The council chamber was a monument to bureaucratic grandeur, all sweeping architecture and carefully calculated lighting, designed to make every species feel simultaneously welcome and insignificant. The kits had always found it oppressive. Today, it felt suffocating. Chancellor Tormac, a brethren whose crystalline exoskeleton refracted light in nauseating patterns, called the session to order with 3 sharp raps of his resident staff. We are here to review Incident Report 973. A human educator, designation Emma Reeves, engaged hostile forces in defense of civilian juveniles. Casualties were incurred. Questions remain. Verketh watched from the intelligence section as a holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber. Security footage, grainy, corrupted in places by weapons discharge and electromagnetic interference, but clear. The classroom looked like any other in the Confederacy educational system. Bright colors, learning stations, small chairs designed for a dozen different physiologies, and children, so many children. Soltaurine hatchlings with their iridescent scales still soft, brethren larvae in their mobility pods, Tyaxian cubs with oversized ears and uncertain gaits, even a pair of Nathaniel, the gas-phase younglings, contained in their environmental suits. Standing at the front of the room, pointing at a holographic display of the Andromeda Galaxy, was the human Emma Reeves. She did not look like a warrior. She wore civilian clothing, soft fabrics and muted colors. Her hair, that peculiar mammalian feature humans insisted on maintaining, was pulled back in a simple knot. She was smiling as she spoke, her hands moving in animated gestures that made several of the children chirp with laughter. "Pause," Tornak commanded. The image froze. Emma's face was captured mid-expression. Her eyes twinkled at the corners, mouth open in mid-speech. She looked happy. "On this is your apex predator?" Counselor Drax, a Coronian species specialized in military doctrine, rumbled from his seat. "She appears soft, weak, no visible weapons, no armor. What was security protocol thinking allowing an unacquainted human near vulnerable populations?" Verketh should have kept his mouth shut. He was intelligence, not diplomatic corps, but something about Drax's dismissive tone set his scales on edge. "With respect, Counselor, humans are always armed. Their entire biology is a weapon. We simply choose to ignore it because the alternative is admitting we share council chambers with Deathworlders." A ripple of discomfort moved through the assembled representatives. No one liked talking about Hertz. Classification, Class 12 Deathworld. Gravity 1.2 times Confederacy standard. Atmospheric oxygen levels that would ignite most known species. Native predators that hunted in packs and could run for days without rest. And the humans themselves, persistence predators, who evolved throwing rocks with such accuracy they could kill from a distance, who could survive injuries that would kill most species 3 times over. To looked at a venomous creature and decided to eat it. "Continue the footage," Tornak ordered, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. The hologram resumed. Emma was mid-sentence when the first alarm sounded, Her head snapped up. That predator's awareness that humans tried so hard to suppress in polite company suddenly laser-focused. The children began to panic, their various distress calls creating a cacophony that made Verkut's ears ache even through the recording. Emma moved, not frantically, not with the blind panic that would have seized most civilians. She moved with purpose, her voice cutting through the noise. "Okay, friends, we are going to play a new game. It is called Very Quiet Hide and Seek. When I say go, I want everyone to get into the supply closet and be absolutely silent. Can you do that?" From the terror axion, no more than 4 cycles old, whimpered, "But teacher, Emma, what about the bad sounds?" Emma knelt, bringing herself to eye level with the child. Her smile never wavered. "The bad sounds cannot hurt you if you are very, very quiet and very, very brave. Can you be brave?" From the cub nodded, ears flattening against its skull. "Good, then go, now." The children moved, shepherded by Emma's calm authority. She counted heads, her lips moving silently as she tallied species and biological requirements. The Nathanians needed temperature regulation. The Brethren larvae required humidity. She was calculating survival parameters, Verkuth realized, even as danger approached. She was running triage protocols. The door to the classroom exploded inward. Verkuth had seen crush raiders before. Everyone in the intelligence corps had studied them. They were nightmares given form, all set in his armor and serrated mandibles, their pheromone trails driving them into feeding frenzies that made conventional combat nearly impossible. They killed for territory, they killed for food, they killed because their biology demanded it. 3 of them poured through the doorway, their sensor stocks swiveling, seeking prey. Emma Reeves put herself between the raiders and the closet door. "Foolish," Drax muttered from his council seat. "She should have hidden with the younglings, at least in the creche would have wasted time searching. She has sacrificed herself for nothing." But Verkuth was watching her face. There was no resignation there, no acceptance of death. Instead, he saw something that made his combat-trained instincts screen warnings his conscious mind could not quite articulate. She was angry. "Hey, Emma," shouted, her voice cutting across the raiders' chattering communication. "Over here, you ugly sons of bitches." The lead crush pivoted, mandibles spreading in what passed for a smile among its kind. It charged. What happened next would be analyzed by military strategists for the next decade. Emma did not run, did not freeze. She moved with the kind of efficiency that spoke of training most civilians never received. Her hand swept to the desk beside her, grabbing a metal ruler, standard classroom equipment, utterly inadequate as a weapon. She rammed it through the crush's sensor stock. The raider screamed, sound like tearing metal, its exoskeleton clattering as it reeled backward. Emma was already moving, diving under its thrashing limbs, her hands finding a ceremonial Saltorian blade mounted on the wall as part of a cultural display. Decorative, barely shot, she used it anyway. The second crush caught her across the ribs with one clawed appendage. The sound of rending flesh was audible even through the recording. Emma unted, stumbled, blood already darkening her shirt. She did not stop. Verkuth leaned forward in his seat, forgetting protocol, forgetting his carefully maintained professional detachment. The human was outmatched, outweighed, bleeding from the wound that should have incapacitated her, and she was still fighting. The third cost tried to circle around her, angling for the closet door. Alack, of course she saw it. Those predator eyes missed nothing. She threw the ceremonial blade. It was not designed for throwing. It tumbled end over end in a wobbly arc that any trained warrior would have laughed at. It hit the crush directly in its primary visual cluster. "Impossible," someone breathed from the council seats. The raider howled, clawing at its face. Emma used the distraction to grab a chair, swinging it with every ounce of strength her death-world physiological protocol could muster. The chair shattered against the first crush's skull plating. It did not kill the creature, but it stunned it. It bought her 3 precious seconds. 3 seconds she used to position herself directly in front of the closet door, legs spread in a fighter stance, her body a living shield between the raiders and the children. The creche regrouped, all 3 of them now angry and hurt and driven by instincts older than civilization. They attacked as one. Emma met them head on. Later, the xenobiologists would explain. Adrenaline, evolutionary combat pharmacology, the human body's ability to suppress pain, to flood the system with chemicals that turned ordinary civilians into berserkers when their young were threatened. It did not matter that these were not her biological offspring. The mammalian hindbrain made no such distinction. She fought like a kin predator, because that is exactly what she was. The first crush went down with Emma's thumbs driven into its sensor stocks, blinding it, sending it into a thrashing panic. The second caught her across the shoulder, tearing muscle and tendon, her arm hanging at an angle that made Verketh's stomach turn. She pivoted, used her good arm to deflect the third, redirecting its momentum into the wall hard enough to crack its exoskeleton. They tore into her, claws and mandibles and armored limbs. She bled endlessly, horrifically. Her blood painted the classroom walls in arterial sprays that should have meant death within seconds. She did not fall. "Medical assistance is 3 minutes out," Mello whispered beside Verketh. She maintained defensive position for 3 minutes and 47 seconds while suffering from 72% total blood volume, 14 major lacerations, 3 penetrated organs. Your left brachial artery was completely severed. By all medical standards for your species, you should have lost consciousness within 30 seconds and expired within 2 minutes. "Sorry to disappoint," Emma muttered. "You do not understand." The Breathian doctor's voice held something between awe and horror.